Good evening, everybody. This is Jeff, Junior Hockey Advisor. Good night to be talking hockey. We're going to come back and start with our discussion. ACHA, NCAA Division III. Can the ACHA programs beat D3? A lot of talk out there about this happening. Let's discuss it. Let's look at it. And guess who's back? Mike Bloom's back tonight. We'll get going right now. Let's get at it and let's have some fun. I think he's here. Let's get him on. Let's get this music off. Mr. Bloom, how you doing, man?
Hey, Jeff. How's it going?
As soon as I figure out how to turn this music off, everything's been great. There we go. Things are going good. I'm glad to have you back, man.
Yeah, it looks like you got your hair cut. You're all spiffed up, ready to rip.
Kinda. Maybe the shirt came out of the dry cleaning or the hopper. I don't know. Either way, it's on. And yeah, I did get a haircut. I hope it looks good. Hey, listen, this could be fun tonight, man. This could be a really, really fun discussion. You ready for it?
I think I am. Yeah. I'm starting to get my thoughts together on, what direction I want to go with it, but I'm excited.
Well, let's play with that first. First of all, welcome, everybody. I'm Jeff Colson. That's Mike Bloom. We are the Junior Hockey Advisor live stream. We do this every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock, or we try to do it every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock. Been fairly consistent. I think we're 8-10 in a row now, man. We're doing it pretty good right now. We take a different topic that will help you, we take your questions too, to help you understand the process of getting from youth hockey to junior, from junior to college. And we try to do the best we can to explain the areas that you may or may not have full understanding of, or you just want more clarification. And that's what we do. Between the two of us, we've got a lot of experience at this. You know, Mike is probably at 50, 60 years by now. And between the two of us, so I would imagine that we're somewhere close to 50 plus years. What would you think?
Is that like when everyone talks about the Gretzky brothers and how many goals they scored? Are you Wayne in this? And I'm Trent.
Oh, I like that though. That's kind of funny. Good. Anyway, we do this. We work as professionals in the industry in multi-facets. Mike does online instruction. He is a director of hockey player personnel for a Tier 2 junior team in the United States, which would mean it's in the North American Hockey League. I too have a similar role as him, and then we do this too to try to help you understand what's going on. Mike, give me your first thoughts on this. Give me your first thoughts on where are you going? Where's your head going with this?
Well, I mean, here's the deal. I think ACHA has come so far in the last 5 to 10 years that it's starting to change the narrative, right? It's starting to, as far as like if you look at on ice play, it's getting closer. It's getting a lot closer to being competitive with the NCAA D3 schools. When it comes to the experience, which I'll get into later, there's a difference there, and club hockey is starting to really change minds and make a name for themselves. But NCAA D3 hockey is still really good, really good. The players that come into those programs are in most cases, many of them playing, in the NAL, in the NCDC, in Tier 2 junior hockey league. So that's tough for a club team to be able to pull that many players from that league to fill their roster. So, I'm saying credit to them at the ACHA level, but they're still not there yet from a total roster ability standpoint.
Fully understand what you're saying. What brought this up today and why we're talking about it right now is on the discussion group, there was discussion about what should my kid do? And, we don't need to get into that. Hopefully that person is actually watching. By the way, folks, jump on with your comments right away. It's fun when you guys are chirping and asking questions while we're going. We share those comments when we can. Also, just jump on and say hi and tell us where you're watching from. That's always good for us to know. You don't have to have any comment. You can just say, hey, how you doing? And I'm watching from wherever you're watching from, Marseille. Could be watching from the French Alps, maybe the Italian Riviera. Who knows? You could be anywhere. So good to see you out there. Getting back to this though, so that's what brought it up. The discussion group brought it up. Then I thought, we've been talking about this for a while. We've been talking about wanting to get into ACHA more. Now we've had people like Hall of Famer Mike Hernbrot, coach for the Illinois State program. He's the right now he's the glue behind the whole program because he runs the ACHA D1, the D2, and the D3 team. And I think he's coaching D2 or D3 this year, but he's coached at all the different teams. Wherever they need the need, he jumps in and fills that void or rectifies a concern that they might have in the program. So we've had him on. We've talked ACH hockey. We've explained it. We've talked about how to get recruited to it, but we really haven't really delved into where those players come from and how good they are. And can an ACHA team beat an NCAA Division III team? Is it even possible? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But let's as we go along, let's find out. This real quick before we jump in. We'll say hi to Frank. Frank is diehard. Good to see you, Frank. We got another one on here. It says, what's up, fellas? Checking in from Philly. Good to see you, Philly. Slow coming in, though, folks. Come on and jump on. We usually have 10, 15, 20 telling us where you're from. This must be because you're back tonight. Just right off the bat, this says, as soon as you start talking, stop. It's got to be what it's for. What do you think?
Get those 4 P's in there when you said stop.
Yes, stop. Well, it's like somebody that's not really good on their edges. They go to stop and it kind of chatters across the ice a little bit.
Very good. Look at you on your game.
I'm trying, man. I got to keep up. I had to hold the whole thing together last week.
That's true.
Whew. Yeah, I haven't done that in a while. It's different when you're, for years I went by myself, and then all of a sudden, you and I started doing this, and I got used to it. I started getting off my A game, so I got to bring it back a little bit, So anyway, we got coming on Saskatoon's coming on, Amherst. Somebody in Amherst really likes Amherst, Mass. That is. Let's make sure we're saying that right. And we also got somebody coming on from the big Thunder Bay. That's just fun to say, Thunder Bay. So hey, all right, let's go. I'm going to give you my first experience with ACHA hockey. It goes back years. We're going back to the mid '90s. I know, ancient. Bloomer, were you around yet?
Mid '90s. I was starting high school.
Okay, so you're starting high school in the mid '90s. I had just become a member of the All Marine hockey team, and it consisted of players that, when you have an All Marine team, if you're on a Marine Corps base and you're in the military, you're eligible to try out for that team on any Marine Corps base worldwide. So we had people try out from all over the world, from all the Marine Corps bases. That team consisted of probably 4 or 5 guys that had never played college hockey. The rest were college hockey players and a mix of some pro players too, guys that had played pro hockey. And all, early to mid 20s. Nobody was, we had one guy that joined the team that didn't make the last cut for the Philadelphia Flyers and literally came straight from the Flyers into our program. He was already a commissioned officer in the Marine Corps, but once he got cut, he came straight. So we had guys that had some NHL experience too, not a lot. But part of the job was we played a competitive schedule, but we also were a touring team to promote the Marine Corps. That's why they have these teams. That's why I have the boxers and the wrestlers. You're supposed to go out there in the public and look good and perform well, so people go, wow, that was fun to watch. I want to be a Marine too, that kind of thing. So we end up going to Arizona State on a trip, and then we went to the University of Arizona on the same 4 or 5 day trip. And we were in California. That's where our home base was. That's where the team and our whole operation was set up. And that's nice because most of the guys didn't do anything but play hockey. That's what we did for the Marine Corps. Some still kept in their units, but most of us, it was just pure hockey. So we go out to play at University of Arizona, and we're cocky. We're thinking, we're going to play club hockey team. So, we're used to playing games against like U.S. Congress would play us once a year. And, it's just a bunch of congressmen that may have played somewhere along the line or may not. But, you learn how to play games like that where it's more of an exhibition than it is competitive hockey. And there's a big, big difference there in how you play. We went into the first time we played a club team. Nobody knew what college club hockey was. And we went in to play Arizona State. First of all, their building was packed. It was like, we didn't expect that. We thought there'd be moms and girlfriends, The second thing is they were super good. They were great. And I can't remember really if we won or lost. That's not the point. The point is it was a bloodbath competitive game, not fighting, just, it was a clash of the Titans, and it was a fun competitive environment. And then after the game, we're talking to some of the guys, some of these guys had pro experience. Some of these guys had OHL, Western Hockey League experience. And, the level of hockey was 10 times better than we expected. The next time we played them, we were ready. But that first time they caught us off guard. That was good hockey. So ACHA hockey's had its moments over the years, and especially if you're in the Sun Belt, especially if you've got girls in bikinis, there's going to be good hockey there because players aren't dumb. If you're playing in the Western League and you've got scholarship money to use because you don't go pro, where are you going to go? You're probably going to go somewhere where it's warm. Not everybody, but a lot of guys want to go where it's warm. And with some competitive hockey thrown in, why not? Why not? That's the way it is. So that's my one pull of the story out of the old days for you, Bloom. I did that just for you.
I appreciate that. Back in the 90s. That was back when they had the no glass and the chain link fences.
Okay. So listen to this. Up until last year, Arizona State was playing in the same building that I played in. My son went on a recruiting visit there, and I said, let's go look at that old rink. I'll show you where I played at. And it was the exact same building they were playing in until they moved into this latest building. It was a dump back then, and it was a dump now. It's still there, but it just probably 800 people is all you can get into the building. 700, 800 people. It's not a big. It's like 3 rows of seats on 3 sides of the rink, that kind of thing. So anyway,
where the NCAA DIII team was playing up until they just built their new rink, it was definitely a home ice advantage to have. North Dakota come down and all of a sudden they're back in like a dingy youth rink, and their rink has got marble floors and everything. It's so nice,
North Dakota's dressing in the hallway, that kind of thing. Or they got to dress at the hotel and ride the bus over dressed because there's no room.
Exactly.
That's the way it was. It was not much different than that. So, with that said, let's break this down a little bit. One of the things that I saw in there that kind of got me fired up to discuss this, and I'm coming into this with clean slate, an objective view. My youngest plays ACHA hockey, loves it. He played in the AJ, he played in the NAL. He went to NCAA, had back surgery. That didn't work out because of the injury. He chose to go follow academics, went to a school academically he wanted to go to, and he then chose to go to ACHA hockey, and he's having a blast. It is a great place to play hockey for some, but let's talk about the differences. Before we break down the numbers, you mentioned a little bit about the differences. Let's go a little bit deeper in that. An ACHA team, and Mike Hearn confirmed this with us. What do you get that's different? Well, first of all, most ACHA teams have a price tag on them. In other words, it's going to cost you anywhere from a couple $100 to a couple $1,000 to skate on the team. Not every team. That's part of the shopping process if that's important to you. But for that, you normally get a uniform. You normally don't get sticks or skates or even helmets. You usually buy your own helmet. You might get gloves and jerseys, pants, and or a shell and socks. Probably 50-50 on dedicated locker room space. There are a lot of teams that have dedicated locker room space, but not all, because some programs have multiple men and women on club teams, along with having either a D3 or a D1 team too. So, for example, if you look at Adrian runs a Division III team, and they've got a rink on campus, but they have 1, 2, and 3 on the men's side, and I think they have at least 2 or not 3 women's teams too. So, and then they've got a competitive drill skating team, female. I'm not sure what that's called, but also takes up space in locker room space. So, when you're looking at this situation there, I don't believe they have locker rooms for all. They might, but that'd be like 6, 7 locker rooms. That's a lot of locker rooms for a rink to utilize just for sports. So, not all teams have locker rooms. Not all teams have rinks on campus, but a lot do. So that's another thing that you can look into is, does the club team you're looking at have? Now, what's the difference as far as the academics? A lot of times it's the same schools. It's the same schools that have Division I and Division III will also have a club team. The difference, though, is you might be skating at 10 o'clock. Now, we talk about ice time, still standard 3 20-minute periods, not always the same standard warm-up. Warm-ups can vary from rink to rink, and experiences can vary from rink to rink. In other words, you play in NCAA hockey, usually you've got a firm start time for whatever league you're in. In other words, if you're playing in Wisconsin, they might start every game at 7:05. You're playing in the SUNYs in New York, maybe every game starts at 7:14, or every clock is different on when they exactly start the games. But you get in that rhythm. You get used to the fact that the games are all the same time. ACHA hockey is not like that. ACHA hockey could be postponed or delayed for 2-3 hours if there's a youth tournament going on before you. It's not like NCAA Division I or Division III where, hey, if you're playing a tournament there, you're too bad. When it's time for the Division III or Division I game, all things stop. That game's going on. That's not the way it is with ACHA hockey. Games can be starting in Kentucky. Here's a perfect example. Guess what time the game starts, Mike, in Kentucky?
11:59 p.m.
You're absolutely right. How'd you know that?
I've had players that played there.
Kentucky starts, they have a midnight game, and they're packed. The games are packed. It's amazing to see that. One of the biggest crowds in the sport in ACHA, blows the doors off of most D3 programs, is when North Carolina plays North Carolina State. And they play at an NHL rink and they fill the place. I don't know if they sell it out, but they fill the place, which is pretty darn cool. So, there are differences, though, when it comes to practice time. Mike, what do you think the average, or you probably know this, the average practice time for a ACHA team versus a Division III team?
Practice time meaning like when they start or how long they're on the ice?
How long they're on the ice and when they start, when it fits into the schedule.
I would say they probably would have anywhere between an hour 15 to an hour 30 slot.
How many days a week?
3 to 4.
For ACHA or Division III?
For a ACHA.
Average is 2, and some have 3. So you're not practicing anywhere near as much, and the practices can be anywhere from 6 p.m. till 11 p.m. on the start time. And sometimes they're not consistent week to week either. So you have to get used to being very flexible on your afternoon and evening schedule for this. The other thing too is a lot of ACHA programs are completely student run, meaning a Division I or III program, especially when we're talking about 3 here, they have an athletic director, there's standards. So you usually get supplied with a trainer. You usually have all the information, sports information department, whatever they call it. That's your media. They're there at all games. Your announcers are provided. The athletic department takes care of all the ancillary things to make it super professional. At the ACHA level, a lot of times it's somebody on the team doing the filming. It's somebody on the team sitting in the meaning a player that's not dressing, sitting in the score box doing the scoring, and there's a lot of times where players are driving the vans because they'll take vans instead of buses, and it's the players take care of it. They drive themselves, and maybe the coaches ride on the van with the players, or sometimes the coaches have their own rental car or car too. So that's a big difference. But and here's the difference too. You play Division III, you're practicing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all consistent, all at the same time. with a scheduled lift and a scheduled team meetings and film sessions all built in. None of that other stuff is usually built in at club. Now we'll talk about some exceptions in a second. You add that onto the fact that you have 2 consistent games, usually Friday, Saturday at NCAA Division III. Those games don't always match up, at the same times on the weekends. Sometimes it's a Friday, Saturday, Saturday, Sunday when it comes to ACHA club. So the biggest difference too is getting used to 2 or 3 practices a week instead of 4. And remember, a lot of NCAA Division III teams will have a day skate, a game day skate. They'll go out and shake off all the cobwebs or just loosen up, go out in sweats and a helmet, and skate for half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, maybe run through the power play, maybe do some flow drills earlier in the day on game day. So there is a huge difference with that. Now, some questions coming in or some comments coming in. Let's just see what's going on here. Let's see. Great show watching from North Dakota. Very good.
I just talked to Jeff about an hour ago.
Oh, really? Awesome. Yeah. About?
His son, Adam.
Oh, okay. Good. The kid's got a good name. Like that. Okay, next thing coming in, UNLV plays 1 game a year at 11:59. I believe it's always against ASU, and it's always packed. That's awesome to hear. That's really cool. That's some of the good things about it. Rivalries in the ACHA level exist just like they do at other levels. In fact, because they're bigger schools that have rivalries in basketball and football, a lot of times those rivalries carry over into ACHA, where if you're at Hobart and you're playing Middlebury, maybe there's a rivalry there, and maybe they've played every year for the last 50 years, but it's not the same as, let's say, Michigan playing Michigan State, which both have club programs. They carry on the same kind of rivalry that their Division I team does and the same kind of rivalry that the football team does. And it's all part of being on that large campus with a lot of tradition going into those kind of rivalries. So here's the first question. Mike, why don't you jump on this one?
What is the difference in ACHA Division I, Division II, and Division III? So, I mean, there is a pretty significant difference as far as the caliber of player in most cases. And also, if you're playing D1, the program is ran where they're going to get, probably a better coach, than you're going to find in the other levels. You're going to have more ice time. You're just going to get more than the other levels. It's going to be a lot more of a, professional feel for the ACHA when you're playing D1. The last example of UNLV, I think they won nationals this year as a D1 program in the ACHA. They are basically trying to become an NCAA D1 program. So they are really good, and they're ran like a NCAA college team. So what some of the other teams that are at that high end of ACHA D1, they're like the exceptions to the rule. You're still going to have, 50 other teams that are ACHA D1 that aren't ran to that level.
Right.
But the player caliber is going to be pretty similar in some cases. So they can compete against each other and whatnot. And then you're going to go to a rung down and play D2, and then another rung down and play D3. So the caliber of player and the caliber of the program is going to go down by each division that you go. Now, some of these teams have multiple divisions within the same program. We talked about Illinois State. They have ACHA D1, D2, and D3. So some kids can just graduate high school depending on where they played, and they'll be able to play either D3 or D2, and then hopefully they work their way up over 4 years and they can make the D1 team before they graduate. Most of the kids that are on that D1 team are getting recruited by Illinois State that are playing juniors elsewhere. They could be playing, NA3, they could be playing EHL, they could be playing NCDC, USPHL Premier. They're playing junior hockey, and then that's their way to get to ACHA D1.
Yep. So that's a fantastic explanation, and I appreciate that. Getting back to the coaching, most coaching at the ACHA level across the board, with the exceptions like you were talking about, is either very low stipend or volunteer. Very low stipend means a couple $1,000s here or there. I don't believe, unless a team is stepping up and like right on the verge of going to Division One, I don't believe I know of anybody that's got a full-time ACHA coach. And correct me if I'm wrong. There's so many. There's 600 teams out there now. Maybe there are some programs, but pure just coaching, and they don't run the rink. They don't teach, biology at the college, whatever the case may be. That's rare. The other thing too about this is, in most situations, these are, because they're club level, the team has a board. The team is made up of a board. The players elect their leadership for this board. They have a treasurer, a president, vice president, and yada, whatever other titles they need. And they also have an advisor from the school and maybe another outside advisor to this part of this board. The board hires and fires the coaches, and the coaches get reviewed every year. Now, some programs, and that's why club is different. Club is there for recreational purposes only. If I'm the coach, and I did coach 1 year of ACHA hockey at the University of Rochester, never meant to. I thought it was going to be a year where I stepped back from hockey a little bit. Just came off a real intense run with about 4 or 5 years of a lot of travel, a lot of things going on. The guy was an acquaintance, had hand surgery that put him on Quaaludes or something for like 6 months, whatever the painkillers. Couldn't drive, couldn't get on the ice, couldn't do anything. And he was just spaced out all the time because of the drugs he was taking. And he asked me to step in. I had a blast, had a great time. But you can't discipline players the same way when they can say, hey, we're going to have a vote tonight, and we're going to tell you that you're not returning tomorrow. I mean, does it happen? Yeah, it does. I've had former players that played juniors for me that went to the club level, and they talk about having to vote their coach out because they didn't like the way he was doing things. Now, in most situations, it's that I think that's rare. I think that's very rare. But you don't discipline the same way. The other thing too is you don't see the consistency in games being the priority, meaning academics come first in most situations with ACHA hockey. You don't schedule your classes around your practice and your games. You schedule your games and your practices around your academic classes. So, for example, like I said, my youngest son made the transition from NCAA to club. It was his first year this year. He's a junior and a half right now, so he's going to have this year and next year. He probably missed 5 or 6 games because the team was going on the road, and he either had a big test on Thursday or Friday before they went on the road, or he had a super big exam or something due on Monday, and there's just no way he could afford to leave. And it wasn't uncommon for that practice. Okay. Academics do take precedence at most ACHA programs. Mike, you got anything on that?
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the reason, like my path, I had the opportunity to consider NCAA D3 or to play D1 college club. And I ended up choosing, to go to Western Michigan, which, when I look at the D3 opportunities that I had, they were small schools. The high school that I went to here in Chicago, we had, 3,000-4,000 students. In the college that I would have been going to had like 1,500 students. So I went to a bigger high school almost by 3 times than what some of these schools would be. So I wanted to have that college experience.
Right.
When I went there and kind of understood what the club level was like, and you're driving Sprinter vans to the different away games and things like that. There's no like tutors or study tables or any of that stuff when you do have, away trips and you're trying to make up all your homework. I was not a good student to begin with. I could care less about grades throughout high school and things like that, which is why I went to Western Michigan. But, it was one of those things where I had to make the choice where I was like, there's no way, if it's hockey, social life, school, that I'm going to be able to make it through doing all of these things, because hockey is going to come first, social life is going to come second, and academics would be way at the very end. So I made the decision to just not play college club anymore and focus in on my social life. Now, academics, Jeff.
But either way, that's fine. But that's what club hockey allows. It allows you to prioritize social over academics and over hockey. It allows you to, put hockey first, put hockey third, it allows you to do a lot of things different. Whereas if you're playing Division I, it is literally a job. I can tell you that was the thing I was the least prepared for, was literally knowing that my soul was owned, for academic, or for not academics, but for athletics, from 3 o'clock till 7, 8 o'clock every day. That's what I did. There was in the weekends, that's what I did. There was no getting around that. Whereas club hockey, once again, you show up for 2 practices, 3 practices. It's usually later in the evening. You play on the weekends. You're not showing up for film sessions and team stretches and walkthroughs or anything. It's the game day is not a get there 3 hours before the game thing. Game day is you get there in time to make the team stretch, 45 minutes before the game or whatever it is. Now, it's different. That's all I'm saying, is it's different. Let's go into some details. I know a lot of you have been teasing that. Let's look at the stats. Let's look at, and who would win if these programs played each other. Mike, let's talk goalies. You like talking goalies?
Not particularly. I like scoring on them. I don't like talking about them.
We got to talk goalies here. I got research. I got research in my hand here that I did today. I got so fired. Well, I had contractors in the house, so I kind of had to hide. I had to stay here, but I couldn't go anywhere. And, I wanted to do things and get out of so I just stayed here and I did lots of numbers and research. So, okay, I'll let Frank ask something first, and then we'll get into the goalies. Is it normal for ACHA players to advance to a higher level of NCAA? Nope, it's not normal. It happens. Very not normal though. It's and we'll talk about that, because it might happen more going the other way, where you're actually coming down versus going up, and we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, in the ACHA Division I ranks, goalies with NAHL, North American Hockey League experience. How many goalies do you think had North American Hockey League experience? And let me give you a number here. I think the total amount of players that are in ACHA D1, I think it's 1,800 forwards. God. What's that?
I said, oh my God.
1,800 forwards and maybe 300 goalies, I think the number was at. Okay. So, okay, couple hundred. I can actually look at that real quick while we're talking. So what do you think? How many goalies are null goalies at the Division I level?
I'll go 20.
Ooh, 20. Anybody else out there want to throw a number out? Half of the here's one. Let's throw this one up. Half of the ACHA goalies played in the null. Ooh, that's a big number. That's throwing out a big number. That's maybe more goalies than the null has. It might be hard to do. Okay, so I'm going to tell you that number. That number on paper, what it looks like at first is 15.
Okay.
Not bad for you. What did you say? 20, 25? What did you say?
I said 20.
Okay, so that you weren't that far off then, were you? Now, what could be in the way though of this number? What do you think the next level of the piercing, dig deep research I did today? What's the next thing you should be looking at? If there's 15 goalies on paper, what should I be looking at next?
How many games they've played?
Oh, what a genius answer. I love it. Okay. Goalie 1. I'm just going to go one. I'm not going to give you names. 0 games. Goalie 2. 0 games. Goalie 3. 0 games. These are the null games. Goalie 4. Hallelujah. 1 game. Goalie 5. 0 games. Goalie 6. 1 game. Goalie 7. 0 games. 8. 0. Goalie 9, 1. Goalie 10, 2 games. Goalie 11, 0 games. Goalie 12, 1 game. 13, 14, and 15, 0 games. So of the 15 goalies, they have an absolute whopping 5 games of experience in the null. That's your Division I level as far as null goalies. What do you think about that, Mike?
That is surprising. I would think that there'd be a couple null goalies that decided to go the club route just because, get a bigger school experience and things like that. So, yeah, I actually am a little surprised in that.
Here's the I don't know who this is out there. I wish they put their name on it. Ooh, missed it by that much. quote unquote. Honestly, that surprised me too. I expected to see same with you. I thought there'd be 15 or 20 goalies. And well, maybe I thought 20, 25. And I thought they'd probably have an average of 10 games apiece. That's what I thought, of total experience. But when you're talking about 15 goalies only having 5 games to spread amongst them, that's like 0.33 games experience on average. So basically, there is no null existence when it comes to goalies inside of ACHA Division I hockey. We didn't look at Division II and Division III because remember, there's kids that will leave, ACHA hockey, Division I or Division III, drop down and play 2 years of club after they graduate or whatever the case may be. And you'll get null guys, USHL guys, BCHL guys, for whatever reason, end up going straight to play D3 somewhere, Tier 3 somewhere. That's extremely rare, though, but it does happen. Okay, do you want to get into the goalie side? We said we're going to keep this short tonight, so I don't know what our time frame is right now. Yeah, we got 5-10 minutes left, Mike. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. This one, we need more active participation with the audience. Michael, tell me how many players you think played in the null and went to ACHA Division I hockey as far as forwards and Ds.
Total skaters, I would say 45.
Ooh, okay, so that's a great answer. It's a little low on paper. Remember, we're talking about on paper, meaning it shows up, you screen them out, and under their name it says, North American Hockey League, Odessa, okay? But it doesn't necessarily mean that, when you go to GP games played, that number's ticking there. How about people out there? Frank says 62 players. That's a good guess, Frank. I can tell you both those numbers are low right now. I'll tap dance for a second while I'm waiting. All right. Nobody else wants to guess. That's fine. You don't have to guess if you don't want to. The number is 110. 110 people played on that. Now, if you say 110, Jeff, why, that's a large number. Okay. Is it really a large number? And what I mean by that is, compared to how many players there are at that level, is it really that large of a number? Remember what I said, in the league, there is, I got it right here. 1,847 forwards, 252 goalies. So there's 2,199 players playing ACHA Division I. This is just Division I. Okay. So first of all, let's take that 125. And if you just use that face value 125 and divide it by, we'll just do it by forwards and D, 1847, just to be fair. 1847, that's 6% of the league is made up of null. So if you think that, null players are flocking to the ACHA, less than 6% play. Now, if you do it with all the roster, which is probably the fair way to do it, so you take 125 divided by the whole amount, that number drops down to just a little bit lower. It doesn't change it much, but it's less than 6%. Now, just like with goalies, let's break down that 125. How many players do you think had 0 games out of that 125.
70.
No, the number was quite lower. The number was 10. 10 players as a forward or D were listed but did not have games. Okay. So anyway, that takes that number down from 125 to 115. How many players had 1 to 10 games?
35.
58. 58. So that means 68 is well over half is just taken right off the board right away. Now I'll cover the rest of those, but let's take 68 off of 125 just because it's fun. Minus 68 equals 57 players. So you divide that by 2,200. That means you have less than 3% of the league. Less than 3% of the league is null at Division I, college club hockey, ACHA Division I, less than 3. In fact, it's 2.59. So 2.6%. Okay, that's incredible when you think about it. 2.6%. Now, let's take a couple other looks at this from a couple different angles. If you go into the 11 to 20, so Mike, do you consider a player that's got 11 to 20 games in the null a player that's coming from the null?
Man, if it was in their last year and they finished in the null and then made it out, yeah, I would consider them coming from the null.
That's
Maybe
fair.
They played tier 3 and moved up and finished, at the tier 2 level. I would consider them coming from there.
And I'm so glad you said that because I drew little down arrows against the kids that were going down versus going up. Okay. In other words, they played at the beginning of the year with the null, which takes almost between there's 9 kids that played 11 to 20 games, and there's 12 kids that played 21 to 40 games. I consider that part-time. Maybe they were moving up. 70% of those kids were moving down. They had their experience and then went down to the NA3. They went to the NCDC. They went to the USPHL or wherever they went. So when you actually look at it, of the players that played 80 plus games, or actually it's 81. I did 60 to 80. There's only 4 players there. And the players that played 81 plus games, only 14 players, 81 plus games, I consider a 2-year player. Okay. Maybe you got 20 the first year, then he played 60 the next year. But what is it? 65 games this year is a regular season?
About.
Okay. And that changes year to year, depending on pandemic or not. But there's only 14 players that were big dogs. Okay. 14 players had 80 plus games. That means they were veteran null players. They weren't guys that just got a taste in the null or less than a full year. So I consider those guys in the 60 to 1 to 80 category. Those are probably players that got time because most of those guys, of those 4 players, 3 of the 4, they got 61 to 80 games over 2 or 3 seasons. So they played 20-something games. They moved down. They came back the next year, got 15. Maybe it was an injury. We don't know why. But there's really 14, let's say they'll even throw it at 14 to 18 players that are playing at the ACHA level that are seasoned veterans. So if you take 18 players, you're not going to like this number, Mike. It's 0.00818. 0.00, less than 1% of players that are veteran null guys are actually playing ACHA hockey. Did you ever think that those numbers would look like that, Mike?
No, I thought there'd be more, but I'd break it down another layer and say, I guarantee you those 18 or 14 players, whatever it was, they're all on the top 5 teams that are in the ACHA D1.
Oh, that's great to hear because I broke down the top dogs. I don't know if you can see this, but it says right there on the sheet. Oh, come on, camera. Top dogs. I don't know if you can see it right there. Top dogs. Put it right on the sheet. Okay, let's see how it broke down. I didn't get a chance. I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of the 14 I got to. Okay. 1 at Mizzou, 1 at ASU, 1 at Liberty, 1 at Ohio, 1 at Stony Brook, 1 at Oregon, 1 at Calvin, 1 at Roosevelt, 1 at Minot. Why always this? What is the right way to say it?
Minot.
Why not Minot? 1 at Iowa, 1 at Arizona, not ASU, Arizona State, but Arizona, and 1 at UNLV. So the distribution, although it's different when you count the 125 players, it's heavily laden towards ASU, UNLV, and Ohio, Liberty, Stony Brook. Those programs are heavily laden with guys that were listed with like 20 or below games. But when you're talking about the top dogs, it's distributed all across the place. All good quality programs for the most part. Some of these names I don't know. University of Mary. Does anybody know where the University of Mary's at?
Yes.
Anybody? Bueller.
It's in the East Coast. Maybe, where is that? Virginia, maybe?
Interesting. No idea where that's at. Don't know where Calvin's at.
Calvin's in Michigan.
Calvin's a Michigan school?
Yeah, I think it's in Grand Rapids.
Oh, okay. That's over there. That's a different area of Michigan that I spent a lot of time in. So, but all the other schools, everybody knows. So the myth, and this is something we got to hammer home, because ACHA is a good brand of hockey, but it's not. Even the Division I level is not NCAA Division III as far as rosters go. I pull up the Hobart roster, and the first four guys, or four out of the first five guys, are null guys, and they're veteran null guys. These are 100+ null guys, 100+ games null guys. And the other thing I didn't go into on this is, even though we looked at the amount of players and the drastically low percentage, when I started counting how many productive games they had, these weren't go-to guys for the most part. I don't mean that in a mean way, but if I've only got 10 or 15 games and my sheet shows zeros across the board, no penalties, no plus minus, no goals, no assists, that usually means that maybe even if you're dressing for a game, you're getting a shift or two, or you're getting a limited play. So that's when we're looking at this, I don't want to speculate and say there isn't a team out there that can beat an NCAA Division III team. Absolutely, there is ACHA teams that can beat a team. Okay, but ACHA teams are not designed like NCAA teams are. In fact, you mentioned this a little bit earlier. Almost every NCAA team has recruiting. I can tell you right now, the University of Michigan, where my son's at, they don't recruit a bit. They don't reach out and try to bring players in from the outside. If you show up at tryouts, you get to try out. Now there's teams on this list. You talk to Mike Kernbrot, they start tryouts. They do ID skates. I think they do 2 or 3 ID skates in the spring, in the summer, and then they've got 3 teams to fill. They've got scouts out in the field all the time. They run it like as professional as any Division III team can possibly run it. That's the exception, not the rule. So, Mike, thoughts on this? I mean, dispelled all the kids going to one program that are the top dogs in the null. We don't have goalies coming from the null to play, and the players that are coming in there that are seasoned veterans, that 100+ game guys, 14 in the league of 2,200. That's pretty low. That's pretty low. Even if you use
I think the best way to look at it was how you did, right? Where you break down where the roster is being created from, which league is creating all these different, or which league is providing that roster. If it's coming from a Tier 3 junior league, that's going to be a different competitive balance for whatever college, ACHA team that is. If you're getting all guys, you're getting NCDC guys, that's what all of NCAA D3 is going to be. And it's going to have some Tier 3 guys at the highest levels and things like that. But, you look at the null, and it's like 80% of the players in the null are going to go D1. The other 20% are going to go D3 unless they choose to go play college club.
I think that number is a little bit more balanced now. I think because remember, we've added so many teams in the last 4 or 5 years. I would agree with you 4 years ago on that number. I think that, and we'll do the number, you and I will do that number in a few weeks as we get closer to the draft. But I think that number is, the teeter-totter is starting to move a little bit more to D3 because we've expanded so much as a league. There's just not that much D1 room around. And so that number has shifted a bit. I want to look at one thing, though. We were talking about Division I ACHA, and you brought up the NCDC. So let's do a quick little game here. We'll bring up a screen. I will share the screen with you. Tell me if you got it, Mike. You got it?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so there's ACHA. I'm on Elite Prospects, my favorite tool today. I've been on this. I think it was smoking. I think Elite Prospects had to put a fire extinguisher on their website today because I was just squealing through there grabbing information. So I'm pulling up the ACHA, and all I'm doing is looking at their list of players here. This is where I got my information earlier today. Once again, 1,847 forwards. What I want to do here, though, is I want to go and up to the top of this list here, and all I want to do is put in NCDC, just like I did NCDC, just like I did with the null. I'm going to search and see how many players come from the NCDC versus the null. So I hit apply premium filter. I go down here. Here's my list. And the list is, wow, not anywhere near as many as the null list. There's 69 players and 2, 4, 6 goalies. That's not a number I expected to see. I expected that number to be bigger. So that tells me, wow, that tells me a lot as far as, holy smokes, if there's only, 60 something, once you get away from the 10 or less games players in the null, there's 60 something players there. There's 69 showing here plus the goalies. Let's say you got 75 total, but we haven't scrutinized those and gone through and said, well, they're listed as NCDC, but they only got one game. They're listed, but they only got 2 games. That number is going to shrink. So between the 2 leagues, easily we're going to fall under 100 total players. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. I would have said between those 2 leagues. Now, once again, we can go back and you can see if we use a league like the NA3HL. Give me your guess on this one, Mike.
There'd be a ton, maybe 300.
And the number is not bad. 271 on the forwards and, lots of goalies. Holy smokes, 24. And then games with less than 10 games, you got another holy smokes, 29. So 30, 25. There's 50 players there plus, and then add that on there. Yeah, you're just over 300. Wow, that's a great guess, Mike. So you can see where the majority of the players are going. Were you pulling it up at the same time I was?
No, I got my arms folded. What do you mean? I'm sitting back over here.
That's I hope that was entertaining or at least informative. So anyway, Mike, if you got to drop off, go ahead. I know that we said we're going to go short today, but we've got a nice audience here. I'll stick around if you've got to hit the road.
I could. I'll stay on for another 5-10 minutes. I'm still good.
Okay, let's get to Matt's question. I think that's a good one. Thoughts on going to a better school for your major and playing ACHA D3, or not as good of an academic program, but playing ACHA D1 if you had an opportunity to choose? I know which way I'm going, which way, and Mike's going to party, so he's going to take the D1 and party.
No, I'm not. I'm taking the academic side. I mean, when you're playing club hockey, you pick your school, and if it has a team, which in most cases it will, then you play hockey.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I there are guys, and you can tell by going through these lists like I did all day long today, there are guys that left, I didn't even talk about that. Handful, we don't have to get into it. Handful of D3 drop downs and D1 drop downs that had null experience but dropped down after playing at least 2. I think there was maybe 6 guys that played D1 or D3, and then you could tell they probably graduated or probably said, hey, I'm not getting a lot of time or whatever. I'm just going to go to a school academically and go to school but play club hockey. Or some of them look like they went to the schools that were super competitive, that had a chance to win a national title, so they got recruited to a school like that. But I don't disagree with Mike at all on that. I think you absolutely got to go to the best academic school you can go to, because once again, I can tell you this, I've got a son that played in the null, won a Robertson Cup in the null, USHL draft pick, NCAA Division I commitment player, had some problems with a back injury and shoulder injury, took him in a different direction. He's playing D2 at the University of Michigan. He's not playing D1, and he's loving it. And they play good, fun, competitive hockey. And, some games are like snoozers, but that happens even at NCAA Division III, there's snoozers. Even at ACHA Division I, there's snoozers, games that are lopsided. We all, no matter where you're playing, unless you're playing D1, you're not going to see 12-1 games very often in Division I. But you will see a 10-0 game, once in a while in D3. So, all right, let's get to the next question right here. And that says, is that for all divisions of ACHA when you looked up players that came from the NCD? No, just looked at D1. Just looked at ACHA D1. I'm sure there's more players. And we didn't even get into EHL players coming. We didn't get into all those others. And we can do that in the future. It's just we only have an hour, so I didn't have time. Here's an interesting one. Club hockey people, get an education. That's kind of what we're trying to do here. That's what we do, is educate. I hope that's supposed to be a positive comment. I took it as being a positive comment. But that's why we're here, is to try to explain this a little bit. But USHL, you're only going to see a handful of players with USHL experience. BCHL, there was a couple BCHL kids in here, but less than 5 BCHL, less than 5 USHL. And the BCHL, just because it's not the process, a lot of those kids will go play U Sports before they go play ACHA. Now, when we go back to why not, my not, look at their roster. There's only three Americans on that my not team. The rest are Canadians. They're all from Saskatchewan. They're all from Manitoba. And that's why that team is so strong and so good. Most of their experience comes from the CJHL. And we didn't get into the CJHL. There is an influence there. I didn't break it down into those areas. So, Mike, last thoughts on this. What do you think, man? Was this good? Was this helpful?
Yeah, I think it is. I think, everyone always wants to know who would win if they played each other. I think the best way for people to start thinking about it is not who is the better team, but what is the experience that you want as a player, or you want for your kid. Do you want to go to a small school and maybe get, a bunch of, academic scholarships and things like that, which is their athletic scholarship, and be able to play NCAA, hockey and say that you did that and be a part of the school in a little bit of a deeper way than you would when you're playing club hockey, then go D3. If it's, I'm going to go and get an education, I'm going to have the full college experience, I'm going to go to football games and basketball, and I got all these other things that I'm also doing along with playing hockey, then college club is a very good option. And people like to think that it's not, but like I said, in the last 5 to 10 years, like, club hockey is exploding.
Club hockey is exploding. They're adding it all the time. There's, in the D3 levels, I think we're just below 100 teams right now. On the ACHA side, I did not count the amount of teams, but it's right here. I can do it real quick for you.
There's like 300 ACHA D3 schools. There's over 250 D2 schools.
But I think the number is a lot smaller on the D1, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's over 100, but it's not 200.
That's the number I was looking at. Is I thought it was going to be around 100, give or take. And I'll pull that up real quick here. That's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Yeah. So 20, 40, 68. The numbers between 70 and 80. Excuse me. That was just a real quick math on that. I just, counted one column. So, you want my opinion on this? You take the average ACHA D1 team and you take the average, once again, standard deviation. We're not taking the worst. We're not taking the best from either one. We're going to go down the middle, cut the pie right there. Okay. NCAA Division III is going to win, 8 out of 10 times. That's just looking at the statistics on this. They're going to have a better recruiting pool of players. They're on the ice more. Okay. It's more structured towards being on the ice more. They have more support from the school. Like I said, sport information director, making sure all their social media is out there. They've got very organized The refs are on time, which is a part with ACHA that doesn't always work out the same way. Transportation's better. The crowds, honestly, I would give that as a toss-up because a lot of ACHA programs have great crowds. That just depends on the school and the flavor of the school that you're at. The coach is full-time at 95% of the NCAA Division III programs. I know of very few, maybe a couple small ones on the East that still have a part-time coach, mostly full-time, and mostly full-time assistant coaches at most of your programs now at the D3 level. That is huge when you have two coaches that can put a full-time effort into practice planning, game planning, and recruiting. That's the difference of where teams make up the difference at. And hey, no matter how you look at it, you can't compare it to the top 10, 15, 20, 25 teams in Division III because now that the portal's here, kids are getting left on the sidelines with programs. Drop downs are so prevalent to Division III hockey now. A good Division III team can have 3, 5, 6 guys with Division I experience under their belt, which means they've got all BCHL and USHL experience under the belt. You can't compare against those programs. You got to set those aside. If you want to say that you can beat a team, yeah, you can beat a low-end team that's not properly funded, is not a priority for the school, part-time coach, no recruiting. Yeah, I'm sure there's a D3 program out there that ACHA. Now, take away also that ACHA team on the top that's going D1 next year, so they've been building their roster towards that because kids know that if they get there early, they can be on the team. So that's all I got. I'm glad that we had such an audience. Thank you. I love this. Chris has got the right attitude on this. If we played them 10 times, they might beat us 9, but not this game. Not today. Not now. Not here. Love it. Love it. Throw a Herb Brooks in there any day. Mike, thank you so much for getting back on. You're looking good. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Folks, I'm so glad we had such a great audience tonight. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next week. And if you think you got some other comments on this, put them on the comments, even though the broadcast is going off. Make sure you go and like and subscribe our YouTube page. Make sure you get on our Facebook discussion group. Join that too. You'll love it. You'll find a lot of great information there. Jump into the archives on YouTube. We really need support there. Watch some old videos. Watch some of the stuff that we've archived. There's great information in there. Besides that, have a good night, everybody.